So yes, I am the curator at EKU, and we technically curate two herbaria in our location. So we have the Ronald L. Jones, or the EKY herbarium, and then we have the Ralph L. Thompson, or the Berea herbarium. So technically we have these two locations, or two collections that I curate. And as you would expect, our specimens focus mostly on central and eastern Kentucky county records. This is a little bit of a dated map. I made this a couple years ago. But basically anything in the darker purple means that we need to have some better records, better collections. So essentially Western Kentucky is a big gap for us that we would kind of like to focus, and then some portions of Eastern Kentucky. But again, this is a little outdated. I'll talk a little bit about what we've done, especially last year, here in just a second. We are very active. So we have, guest researchers that come. I've had, since I've been at the Curator for about 3 years, I've had somebody from the Botanical Research Institute of Texas come because they were working on blueberry taxonomy. We have, people from all over the state as well. So it's a very active herbarium. We do a lot of gifts and exchanges as well. So those of you out in Western Kentucky, if you would like to establish any kind of an exchange, I would be very interested in that. EKY specifically is also the herbarium that's used by the Office of Kentucky Nature Preserve. So we have a lot of cool kind of state records and things like that. This is obviously still a work in progress as well. I know that the Office of Kentucky Nature Preserves is interested in establishing kind of a separate list. So there's a list of all the threatened and endangered plants in the state. Records of that, when we digitize them on this database called CERNEC that I'll talk about here in a second, they're automatically obscured. But obviously, if there are plants that we think should be of kind of regional importance, or maybe haven't made it onto that list, but are top candidates to be on that list. I know that OKNP is working on developing that list. So some of those collections haven't been digitized at all yet, because I want to kind of work with them better to make sure those records are protected. Within the past week and a half, I've had people from the Office of Kentucky Nature Preserves visit. They were using our collections to compare native and non-native taxa. So I know, for instance, they were looking a lot at Celastris to determine the differences between the native and the non-native, and they found some really great diagnostic characteristics that they can use then in the field. But it was great for them to have these, curated collections so that they could actually look at these specimens side by side to get really distinct characteristics while they're out doing their field work. So as I mentioned before, we have CERNEC. So this is where we kind of digitize or make our collections available to the world. This happens in kind of a series of steps, obviously. So, you go out in the field, you collect your plants, you take them from a 3-dimensional format, press them down to 2D. Then after that, you have to prepare your labels. Without the label information, these are not scientifically valid collections. So we have to know, who collected it, where they collected it. Nowadays, we typically use GPS points. Any other habitat locality information that you can provide on that label makes it, even more robust. And then after that, they go through the series of quarantine, then they get mounted, and then they're finally ready to be entered onto CERNEC. And so we do this in a kind of a 2-step approach. So we can have text data that's just very limited information from that label that basically tells people, hey, we have this collection of this specimen, this species, collected by this person, on this date. So a lot of that additional information on the label doesn't get transcribed over immediately. And then we also take high resolution images, and then those images and that text data get linked together. So they don't actually live together on the internet anywhere. They're in 2 separate locations, and what links them together is a unique barcode identifier. So that's kind of why things can take a little while, and why there's this progress as well. Over this past year, many thanks to Richard Abbott. He visited to help Ralph Thompson with processing a ton of backlog. Over 10,000, I think in the neighborhood of around 14,000 Berea specimens he helped process. So by that, I mean he helped get labels for these specimens that had been collected. So we're, in the process of either, mounting some of those still, or then getting the images, putting that text data up on CERNEC and those images on CERNEC. to link them together. So that's something that's going to be a big task for us to try to start to tackle in 2026. Um, and beyond, right? So again, these things can just take time. And I am one person, but I do work a lot with students. And then I've had some people reach out and ask about volunteering. That is absolutely something I would be interested in. And again, the process is mounting. So basically, arts and crafts time, you're taking these fragile collected dried plants and then gluing them to archival paper. And then we do the digitizing, which is taking the image, putting that text data on Cernic, and then trying to update things as well. So a lot of students, I wouldn't be able to do as much as I've been able to do without the help of these student workers. And I do want to bring this up because it's been discussed very recently. But as I mentioned, these images are hosted on a server. So EKU does not handle these images. Like we take the pictures and then I upload them somewhere else. And so right now, those images are being stored in Kansas by the person that's kind of the director of this entire massive process all over the United States and beyond. Um, and unfortunately, a lot of this was driven, the funding to host these images, and you'd imagine they're pretty big because they are like high resolution images. It's been funded by the National Science Foundation, so that funding it will lapse this coming year. So that's something that us in the kind of curation world are very much aware of and trying to think about. We're not totally sure yet how that's going to plan out, but if anybody has ideas, other curators, any things that we can talk about to kind of collaborate together if you're experiencing the same kind of concerns, then reach out. I'd be more than happy to have some kind of discussion there. And again, reach out. Here's my email. So please get in touch with me if you have any interest in, volunteering or even getting a tour. I'd be more than happy to do that. We do have well over 120,000 specimens. So we are the largest herbarium in the state. And something I would really like to do in the future is develop a project that's called Notes for Nature. So essentially using citizen scientists and other people that are botanically aware, botanically keen to help us transcribe some of that additional label data. So stuff that doesn't get put over initially onto Cernic, but would be useful to have transcribed over. I would like to develop that project, and I'd be more than happy to send it out to the KNPS listserv and see if anybody would be interested in helping, because it takes a village. So.
Right. So I am a new assistant professor at Murray State University in biology, and I have jumped in and immediately started my curriculum primarily to develop my curriculum. And one of the first things that I've done is created a botany club here at Murray State University, where we are doing certain activities in some of our regional areas like Hancock Biological Station and occasionally Land Between the Lakes, and also some local little Murray in-town places, and teaching them how to use a plant press and how to use different types of dichotomous keys and online resources. Murray State has about 40,000 specimens. Half are already photographed due to the former curator, Dr. Sarr. But we still have a lot more work to do, and we had to upgrade our computing resources. And that took a little bit of time, but we are almost up and running to start bringing in new specimens. Our plant systematics class brought in some new specimens this last fall, so that's a beginning stage. Most of our labels are already digitized and on Cernic, so you can definitely search in that regard. But we have a lot of room for growth. We have many, many open cabinets, so we are looking to add to more specimens, particularly adding for teaching. As I'm teaching here in the Jesse Jones College of Science and Engineering Technology, or JSET. This is a picture here of the biology building, and I basically have this whole second floor wing with my laboratory teaching space, upstairs green room and herbarium. So I have a really good capacity for teaching botany here. Um, Sorry. So this is our teaching space, and last semester I taught plant systematics for the first time here at Murray State, and we taught mostly with herbarium specimens and dried tissues. So we have a really great teaching facility, so that's awesome, and we are always encouraging people to donate specimens for dissection. So if you have a bunch of stuff that you don't need, or maybe doesn't have good collection information, but is still in reasonable shape, we can use that to rehydrate and dissect. I don't really teach with pickles, so it's because of the smell, but mostly working with live or dried tissues. This work I'm going to already get into my little acknowledgments here. This work was primarily done by three amazing students, actually four students. One was Charlotte Saltzman. She was my first student last fall. She graduated in May. And she's worked primarily on the systematics of aeroids because it was just her passion. But she really has done a lot, and she's currently based in Louisville and looking for a position. She's an excellent botanist and is I mean, she just really helped get off the ground here. And then my other three students are Noah Garland, Joshua Strode, and Ash McCarty. Um, Noah and Ash are still undergrads, and Joshua is my first master student. And Ash is working on a seed dispersal project with deer, and Joshua is working on a mustard out that grows from all across the Appalachian chain, Draba ramosissima. And Noah Garland is helping me with a large project that I'm doing out west because I'm a Western botanist still learning to and get into Kentucky. But the three of them have really worked a lot to help with the teaching collection and the herbarium and getting things up and running. And we've had some various funding sources. The Garden Club of America has helped. TRIO and WSI have helped with paying salaries of the students. And then the college, also Murray State College, and also the biology department have helped with giving me some financial assistance for the student workers. So if you have any questions or you have any specimens you'd like to donate, please let me know.
I'm Dr. Maggie Whitson. I'm the curator of Northern Kentucky University's John W. Thuray Herbarium, and I'm going to give you a quick synopsis of who we are and what we do here and what we are up to these days. First of all, basics. Who are we? What are we? Where are we? Uh, our collections were founded by Dr. John Thuray in 1973. I'm the current curator. I've been here since 2003. Our collections are located at Northern Kentucky University. We are in Highland Heights, and if that does not immediately bring a picture to mind, we are very close to Cincinnati. So if you walk to the top of my building and look northward, you will be able to see Cincinnati's skyscrapers on the skyline. Our specialty is flowering plants. They make up the majority of our collections, and we have approximately 30,000 preserved specimens, most of which are pressed dried specimens. While information about the NKU herbarium can be found over the NKU web pages, if you'd like to virtually browse some of our collections, you need to go to the Cernic portal. We have almost 23,000 specimen images posted to that portal, along with a little bit of database information, things like name of the plant and when it was collected. These are mostly southeastern U.S. collections because we had NSF funding to digitize those. We continue to slowly add non-southeastern collections to that digitized portal as I get students who are interested in putting in some volunteer time. So what exciting things are going on currently around the herbarium? The biggest one is not plant related, it's construction related. The Herman Science Center is being expanded. You can see from this architect's drawing they're adding an entire huge new wing of the building at the back of our building. Luckily for us, that's on the opposite side of the building from the herbarium, so this has not stopped the herbarium from functioning. We did have workmen in the herbarium who needed to get into the ceiling because they were renovating classrooms above us. Luckily, that work is now completed. We will not be having to do any kind of moving related to the construction. So the new wing will be great, but it's not going to require that we move any plant specimens. And they're making good progress on this work, so hopefully by next year, everything will have quieted down again. Plant-wise, new things that are going on around the herbarium, I am hoping to be able to use iNaturalist's virtual collections to inspire some physical collections. Over the last few years, I've started using iNaturalist quite a bit. iNaturalist lets you post photos of an organism to kind of maintain a virtual collection. Along with that photo, you post GPS coordinates, time and date, so you have all that important metadata associated with your sighting. I have used this to keep track of biodiversity out at NKU's relatively new research and education field station property. I also use iNaturalist in my general botany class as a place for my students to upload virtual plant collections. And this can be a great way not only of keeping track of biodiversity of a particular place, but it can let you personally or your students keep track of cool things that they have seen. And the nice thing about having projects like this is my students go places that I haven't been yet. There are way more people posting observations from out at our field station than just me, and those people go places around the field station that I haven't been yet. And so many hands make light work. People see things locally that I have not seen, and it helps me target in on areas that might be worth visiting for making physical plant collections. In particular, I've seen several postings from around the area of weeds that are relatively new to the area and that we do not have in the herbarium collections. And so I'm hoping that these iNaturalist records can be a good way of targeting me in on sites where it might be good to make physical collections of new things. And so I'll be visiting some of these sites over the growing season, and we'll see what we find. So that's a quick summary of what's going on around the herbarium. I'm always happy to have visitors. My contact information is on the NKU web pages, and so if you want to come by and use the collections, send me an email and we will set something up.
Now I'm going to spend a couple of minutes introducing the UK herbarium. It's I inherited it in the mid 1990s, but it goes back well, it goes back to Charles Short's specimens from the early 1800s. I will say that the herbarium had a disaster in the late 40s where the collections burned to the ground and it was reassembled by duplicates and good good herbarium curator all over the eastern United States that sent duplicates to us. And what else can I tell you? 61,000 specimens we have. I think the most important thing to say about that is that many of the collections are of historical significance, in that a number of important Kentucky botanists have their collections here. And I'm just going to mention a few of them. Mary Wharton, Willem Meyer, who was the previous curator from the biology department here, Ray Cranfield, Julian Campbell, Frank McFarland, and I mentioned Charles Short from Transylvania way back in the early 1800s. So we have all of those. Elizabeth Brown is here as well. So there are a number of historical collections here. I am not going to take much more time because I want to turn it over to my good colleague, Quinn Towery, who's going to explain what's about to happen here, of which I'm very excited. But before I do, let me just tell you, by the way, I am retired. I retired a couple of years ago. In spite of that, I've been teaching at UK. I've taught 5 courses since retirement, so I don't know what you call that, semi-retirement or something. And I still, as a so-called volunteer, take care of the herbarium, mostly by mounting backlog specimens myself, rotating specimens through the freezer, which every curator knows is a very important function. And I facilitate visitation from researchers and other people. Before I turn it over to Quinn, I want to briefly mention two issues, at least concerns that I have. One of them is a future home for this herbarium. The building that it's housed in, I love the space quite a bit, but this building is probably slated for demolition in the next year or two, and we have to find a home for it, which is of concern. Fortunately, it's nominally housed or responsible for the herbarium is the Department of Forestry, and the acting chair is a biologist. So that cheers me up a little bit that we'll be able to figure out a good home for it. The other concern I have is teaching field botany, or specifically plant systematics. When I retired, there was no plans in any department, including biology and my old home department, and perhaps horticulture and other plant sciences housed in the ag school. There's been no plans to replace anyone to teach that course. And we all know that teaching field botany and plant taxonomy specifically is a very important function for a land grant university. With that in mind, not to make myself sound like a hero, I came back out of retirement and I taught plant systematics last spring. And there's a good chance that I'll come out and do it again in the following spring, not this spring, but next spring. But someone's going to have to figure out how to continue teaching that course, because while there aren't hundreds of students that would take a course like that, there are probably a dozen to 20, maybe every year or two, that really need a course like that. And there are probably a bunch of people on this call that have actually taken my course and know what we're talking about. So those are two issues that concern me. But now I'm going to turn it over to Quinn Towery, who has something very exciting to share with all of you. So that's all for me.
All right, so the big thing that's happening at the University of Kentucky Herbarium right now is the digitization of all of the specimens. So this was made possible through a grant by the Kentucky Native Plant Society. We were awarded a $2,300 grant by KNPS to purchase barcodes and PPE for the project. To make this project happen, we had to gather a bunch of materials, like a key to the herbarium from Rob Pratley. We had to source a light box and camera. Those were generously loaned to us from the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga by Dr. Joey Shaw, who we'll be hearing from later today. The barcodes were purchased with that grant that I mentioned. PPE was also purchased. Computer was stolen from my parents' house. Everybody has an old computer from their parents' house that runs on Windows 7. Don't need to connect to the internet for this, so it works. All right, so like I was saying, software was from GitHub. It was free. We're using the software Herb ASAP. And then volunteers, I need volunteers. And so that's where you all come into play. So, oh, so far, I just talked about the specimens real quick. We've got over 60,000 specimens at the UK Herbarium. It's completely bug-free from what I've seen. Roughly about 50% are poisoned with mercuric chloride, which is why we need to be wearing the PPE. That involves wearing a respirator and rubber gloves so that we don't come in contact with the mercuric chloride. Some of these specimens are very, very old, from the early 1800s. I think the earliest one I've seen so far is from like the 1830s. And then the most common collectors that I've seen so far are Mary Wharton, Mary Beckett, Ray Cranfill, Rob Prattley, William Meyer, Julian Campbell, Ken Ratliff, and Elizabeth Brown. So the end goal of this whole project is uploading all of the pictures and associated metadata to the online portal CERNEC. And then once all of this is on CERNEC, the data will be publicly available and can be used by other online resources such as Bionomia, GBIF, and the Tennessee-Kentucky Plant Atlas. So far, progress, I've been imaging by myself and with one other volunteer for about a month. We've gotten 1,700 specimens imaged. We're expected to increase with more volunteers. I am hosting a volunteer training day on at 5 p.m. at the UK Herbarium on January 20th. Email me if you'd like to join. There's very limited space at the herbarium, so I'm limiting this group number to 10 people. So you got to be quick. I would also prefer people who live within Lexington. Parking is a major issue at the University of Kentucky campus, and it would be much easier if you could walk or bike to the herbarium. And with that, this is my contact information. All right, and then I can put that into the chat as well, that way I can end my slide and stop sharing.
Okay, we are running a little bit behind, but I think we still do have 5 minutes for questions for these various curators, if any have come in. Or if anyone has a question, feel free to unmute yourself and ask.
Hey, Rachel. I don't think any questions have come into the chat, but I do have a question for Sally. Have there been any updates on future funding sources for CERNEC?
Not that I'm aware of. So there are kind of routine curatorial meetings that, like for herbarium curators, that is kind of like national. And so the most recent one, this was kind of the topic. And unfortunately, they didn't like bring it up until the very end of the meeting, but I know it's a thing that is in the back of everybody's minds. So that is something that's very much on, like, one thing I want to try to figure out. One thing that they had mentioned in that meeting is essentially charging for a certain, so I forget the exact breakdown, but it would be, a certain amount of money per gigabyte or whatever that is. And right now, I frankly have no idea like how much space on the server our images are taking up. There are ways, and the people that kind of manage this encourage you to look at ways that you can reduce kind of the file size before you upload them, so they're not just the totally raw images. So I might have to go back and mess with some of the images that we have from like when I wasn't the curator, when there were curators before me. But it's definitely something that people are thinking about and discussing in the curator community. And hopefully there will be some kind of opportunity. I don't know, frankly, if NSF would put out a new solicitation for these kinds of efforts. Whenever you guys visited, and I had brought this up to Quinn, there's another potential funding source called the Institute of Museum and Library Services, and they can sometimes fund things for museum collections in general. So that might be another potential avenue, but I don't know how. I think they're also tied to federal dollars. And so again, I don't know how this is really going to play out. We're all kind of just waiting for the ball to drop a little bit. And I just see that Wesley Knapp put, so that's a thing. I think that like I can reach out to it's called Symbiota, the people that are kind of organizing all of this and hosting the images. So I could reach out to them and then ask for, how much space are we currently taking up with our collections? And then could you give me a funding amount for how much it would be to maintain them on there? I mean, I know they're very, like, as a community, Symbiota is very interested in making sure that these collections stay online, and they do everything. It's not just plants, they do bees, they do all kinds of stuff. So I'm sure that they're probably plugging away trying to figure out a solution too. But right now we're just kind of in no man's land, just knowing that the money is going to run out and we'll hopefully figure something out.